developments in Turkey concerning parliamentary democracy. The allotted time for the debate is exactly 1 hour. Mr. Frank Schwabe will open the debate for 10 minutes. After Mr. Frank Schwabe, Mr. Andreas Nick will have the floor on behalf of EPP, and then we'll take over the meeting for a while since I have other urgent business to attend to. Voila. This being said, let's start. Mr. Schwabe, dear Frank, you have the floor.
Vielen Dank, Herr Präsident. Das, worüber wir heute reden, ist eigentlich der Worst Case, der in einer Demokratie passieren kann. Die drittgrößte Partei, die zweitgrößte Oppositionspartei soll verboten werden. Und wenn man die Verlautbarung der Regierungsparteien sieht, dann ist im Grunde das Urteil schon gefällt. Das Ganze ist ein schwerer Schlag für die Lage in der Türkei, aber es ist eben auch ein schwerer Schlag international und für die internationale Reputation der Türkei. Und für den Europarat ist es in der Tat im Grunde genommen der Worst Case. Das muss man wissen. Und es sind absurde Vorwürfe, wenn man sich die einzelnen Vorwürfe anguckt. Im aktuellen Fall von Herrn Gergerlioglu sind es Tweets oder Retweets, die ihm zum Vorwurf gemacht werden. Darüber kann man dann streiten, ob man die gut oder schlecht findet. Dass man dafür aber 2,5 Jahre in ein Gefängnis gehen soll. Ein Mensch, der im Grunde genommen ein anerkannter Menschenrechtler ist, ein Arzt, ist wirklich in hohem Maße absurd. Ich freue mich darüber, dass Rick Dahms, unser Präsident, in Kürze in die Türkei reisen wird, nach Ankara, und ganz sicher genau diesen Fall deutlich machen wird und die Position des Europarats. Die Generalsekretärin hat sich dazu heute auch klar positioniert. Natürlich werden auch die Fälle Kavala und Demirtaş dort zur Sprache kommen. Was interessant ist in der innenpolitischen Lage in der Türkei, ist, dass es eine geeinte Opposition gibt. Man sieht also, es geht am Ende gar nicht um die Frage, wer da rechts, links oder sonst wie ist, sondern es geht darum, dass die Oppositionsrechte nicht in einer solchen Art und Weise eingeschränkt, ja zerstört werden können. Das Ganze geschieht vor einer innenpolitischen, schwierigen Lage für den Präsidenten. Das kann man, glaube ich, nicht anders feststellen. Insofern gibt es keine juristischen Gründe, sondern es gibt rein politisch motivierte Gründe für diesen Angriff auf die HDP. Ich begrüße, dass international es klare Positionen gibt. Die USA haben sich klar positioniert und davon gesprochen, ich zitiere, dass eine Auflösung der HDP den Willen der türkischen Wähler und die Demokratie untergraben würde. Und der Staatsminister Roth aus Deutschland vertritt ja im Moment die Präsidentschaft, die Chairmanship des Europarats, hat heute auch nochmal deutlich gemacht, dass Deutschland diesen Vorgang verurteilt. Ich freue mich auch darüber, dass die Berichterstatter, unsere beiden Berichterstatter Thomas Hammarberg und John Howell, die ja das Monitoring für die Türkei betreiben, sich klar positioniert haben und auch noch einmal auf die absurden Vorwürfe gegen Herrn Gergerlioglu eingegangen sind, was ja im Moment dazu führt, dass die HDP von 56 Abgeordneten auf 55 Abgeordneten im Parlament zusammengeschrumpft ist. Das, was wir gerade erleben, ist die Spitze des Eisbergs, die Spitze einer Entwicklung, in der massiver Druck auf die HDP ausgeübt wird, und zwar deshalb, weil sie politisch erfolgreich ist. Das ist der ganze Grund, diesen Druck entsprechend auszuüben. Es sind mittlerweile seit 2016 10.000 Mitglieder der HDP inhaftiert worden. Und seit 2019 sind mittlerweile 28 Bürgermeisterinnen und Bürgermeister abgesetzt worden und durch eine Art Zwangsverwalter aus Ankara entsprechend ersetzt worden. Und es ist nicht nur die HDP, auf die Druck ausgeübt wird, sondern es wird auch Druck ausgeübt, zum Beispiel auf die CHP, auf die größte Oppositionspartei, wo zum Beispiel Herr Berberoglu massiv bedrängt wird, oder die Vorsitzende der CHP in Istanbul, Frau Kaftancioğlu. Beide werden strafrechtlich verfolgt, und es gibt auch schon Urteile, jedenfalls in erster Instanz. Wie sehr, und ich habe ja vorhin gehört, dass der Leiter der türkischen Delegation gesagt hat, wir sollen aber nicht vorverurteilen. Wie sehr aber im Grunde genommen in der Türkei vorverurteilt wird und wie sehr am Ende schon klar ist, was dabei rauskommt und wer am Ende bestimmt, wie die Urteile aussehen, der sieht das daran, wie zum Beispiel mit dem Thema Immunität im türkischen Parlament umgegangen wird. Wir haben Stand Februar 2021 1336 Fälle. Das muss man sich mal vorstellen. Versuchen Sie sich mal Ihr eigenes Parlament vorzustellen. Wir haben also 1336 Fälle, in denen die Aufhebung der Immunität entsprechend verlangt wird. Das Ganze betrifft 15. Von den 1336 betrifft es 15 Abgeordnete der AKP und der MAP. Das sind also alles ganz sozusagen Menschen, die sich an die Gesetze halten. Und es gibt sage und schreibe 247 Fälle, 247 Fälle gegen GAP-Abgeordnete und 955 Fälle gegen HDP-Abgeordnete. Das zeigt, wie diese Frage der Strafverfolgung genutzt wird, um Demokratie außer Kraft zu setzen. Aber sie konnte zum Glück bisher nicht außer Kraft gesetzt werden. Wir haben bei den Kommunalwahlen gesehen, dass die Türkei, die Zivilgesellschaft der Türkei so stark ist, trotz aller Angriffe, die Präsident Erdogan vollführt, so stark ist, dass am Ende in großen zentralen Städten der Türkei, in Istanbul und in Ankara zum Beispiel, Oppositionskandidaten am Ende die Wahlen gewinnen konnten und am Ende Bürgermeister dieser Städte geworden sind. Das zeigt, bei all den Bedrängungen, die es gibt in der Türkei, ist die Zivilgesellschaft aktiv und motiviert und sie geht auf die Straße, sie beteiligt sich und sie ist nicht so einfach platt zu machen. Und vor dem Hintergrund kann man nur verstehen, was gerade passiert. Es ist also nicht gelungen, am Ende die Opposition zu marginalisieren, die HDP so weit zu schwächen, dass sie nicht wieder über 10% kommt, weil das ist die entscheidende Hürde in der Türkei, um als Fraktion ins Parlament einziehen zu können. Und vorgesehen sind die Wahlen zum Präsidenten und zum Parlament im Juni 2023. Es gibt Gerüchte darüber, dass diese Wahlen vorgezogen werden könnten. Also wird der Versuch gemacht, die HDP auszuschalten als Faktor im Parlament, um am Ende dazu zu führen, dass AKP und MAP auf jeden Fall eine Mehrheit bekommen. Deswegen reicht es im Übrigen auch nicht, ein Parteienverbot anzustreben, sondern es soll gegen 687 Personen, das ist jedenfalls das, was ich den Medien entnehmen konnte, sollen Verfahren laufen, die dazu führen, dass sie 5 Jahre lang von jeglicher Ausübung eines Mandates ausgeschlossen sind. Das heißt, für 5 Jahre würde jedenfalls ein großer Teil dieser Opposition im Grunde genommen ausgeschaltet. Das gab es nur einmal vorher in der Geschichte der Türkei, in der unseligen Geschichte, nämlich beim Militärputsch 1980, wo am Ende viele Abgeordnete und viele Politiker für 10 Jahre ausgeschlossen wurden. Das ist das Vorbild für das, was jetzt in der Türkei angestrebt ist, und das ist eine ganz bittere Entwicklung. Der Co-Vorsitzende der HDP ist Mithat Sancar, ein ganz engagierter Mensch, für den ich wirklich meine Hand ins Feuer lege. Ein ganz, ganz anständiger Mensch. Der hat gesagt, jeder Angriff, ich zitiere, jeder Angriff gegen uns ist ein Eingeständnis der eigenen Schwäche, ein Eingeständnis des Machtverlusts. Die Regierung glaubt, durch die Missachtung von Gesetzen, Gerechtigkeit und Gewissen und Moral ihren Weg ohne weiteres gehen zu können, aber sie irrt sich gewaltig. Das ist der Gegenstand der aktuellen Debatte in der Türkei. Es ist hochexplosiv und wir sind alarmiert und müssen mit all dem, was wir können, unser Augenmerk auf die Entwicklung in der Türkei richten. Ich will ergänzen, dass wir ja leider nicht sozusagen den ersten Fall haben, mit dem wir uns beschäftigen müssen, sondern wir haben ausstehende Gerichtsurteile. Und das ist sozusagen die rote Karte, das ist die rote Linie des Europarats. Ich verweise auf den Fall Mammadov, Aserbaidschan. Ich kann nur sagen, liebe Türken, guckt euch diesen Fall ganz genau an. Wir sind an derselben Stelle mittlerweile angelangt. Wir sind angelangt im Fall Osman Kavala und ich danke dem Ministerkomitee für die klare Linie. Osman Kavala ist ganz eindeutig und ganz schnell und umgehend aus dem Gefängnis zu entlassen. Er ist alt und es gibt große Sorge um seine Gesundheit. Er muss entlassen werden und die Türkei ist unter großer internationaler Beobachtung genau im Fokus. Und der nächste Fall wird dann Selahattin Demirtas sein. Auch da ist sehr bald angesagt, ganz schnell dieses Urteil umzusetzen. Und es wird dann eine ganze andere Reihe weiterer Urteile geben. Und die Türkei muss sich jetzt entscheiden. Will sie den Weg der Repression im eigenen Land weitergehen? Will sie am Ende zentrale Elemente des Europarats missachten? Wenn sie das tut, reden wir über die Grundfrage, ob ein solcher Staat Mitglied des Europarats sein können. Ich wünsche mir sehr, dass die Türkei Mitglied des Europarats ist. Ich glaube, es tut der Türkei gut, den vielen Menschen in der Türkei, den vielen freundlichen Menschen. Aber die Grundregeln müssen beachtet werden. Wenn sie nämlich für die Türkei nicht gelten, dann werden auch andere Staaten kommen und sagen, sie gelten für uns auch nicht. Ich will meine Solidarität am Ende bekunden mit den Studentinnen und Studenten, die für Wissenschaftsfreiheit kämpfen an der Bosporus-Universität, die von Präsident Erdogan als Terroristen beschimpft wurden, vom Innenminister als Perverse. Ich würde sagen, das ist eine lebendige, demokratische Gesellschaft und man kann stolz darauf sein, dass man solch engagierte Menschen hat, die sich für die Demokratie, für den Rechtsstaat und für die Wissenschaftsfreiheit stark machen. Die dürfen nicht zusammengeprügelt und inhaftiert werden. Also, wir sind an einer erneut Wegscheide und ich fordere auf, gerade die Kolleginnen und Kollegen der AKP, umzukehren, sich zu überlegen, ob das der richtige Weg ist, ob sie diesen Weg weitergehen wollen. Sie überschreiten alle Linien und alles, was für uns akzeptabel ist. Und deswegen ermutige ich uns in den nächsten Wochen und Monaten, uns stark mit der Frage zu beschäftigen und wünsche schon jetzt dem Präsidenten alles Gute auf seiner schwierigen, aber wichtigen Mission. Vielen Dank.
Thank you, Frank. We will now have the representatives of the political groups. And as I said, after the political groups representatives, I will hand the chair of this meeting over to Andreas Nick. First on my list is Andreas Nick for EPP. Andreas, you have the floor.
Herr Präsident, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, die Türkei ist de facto Gründungsmitglied des Europarates. Als solche hat sie sich zur Einhaltung der höchsten Standards von Demokratie, Rechtsstaatlichkeit und Menschenrechten verpflichtet. Eine der vorrangigsten Verpflichtungen, die sich daraus ergeben, ist die Einhaltung und Umsetzung der Urteile des Europäischen Gerichtshofs für Menschenrechte. Die Organe des Europarates, aber auch unsere Monitoring-Berichterstatter haben wiederholt die Umsetzung der Urteile des Europäischen Gerichtshofs, insbesondere in den Fällen von Selahattin Demirtas und Osman Kavala und in vielen anderen gefordert. Und wir werden dies weiter so tun. Ich bin dankbar, dass Staatsminister Roth heute Morgen als Vorsitzender des Ministerkomitees darauf hingewiesen hat, dass es einen offiziellen Brief des Ministerkomitees an den türkischen Außenminister in dieser Angelegenheit gibt und die betreffenden Fälle ab sofort auf jeder Sitzung des Ministerkomitees auf der Tagesordnung stehen. Ich will unterstreichen, die Bürgerinnen und Bürger der Türkei haben ihre besondere Wertschätzung für parlamentarische und pluralistische Demokratie in den vergangenen Jahren vielfach zum Ausdruck gebracht, nicht zuletzt mit hoher Wahlbeteiligung bei demokratischen Wahlen auf kommunaler und nationaler Ebene. Fairer und offener politischer Wettbewerb ist eine Grundvoraussetzung eines demokratischen Prozesses und um sicherstellen zu können, dass die Vielfalt der Meinungen und Interessen der Bürgerinnen und Bürger eines Landes legitim repräsentiert ist. Parlamentsabgeordneten das Mandat zu entziehen oder sie zu verhaften, ist ein inakzeptables Vorgehen und führt zu einer dramatischen Verschlechterung der Meinungsfreiheit und der Meinungsvielfalt in einem Land. Lassen Sie mich mit aller Klarheit sagen, Parlamentarier gehören ins Parlament und nicht ins Gefängnis. Angesichts der jüngsten Ereignisse ist die EVP-Fraktion in hohem Maße besorgt, was die Einleitung eines Parteiverbotsverfahrens für die HDP durch den Generalstaatsanwalt angeht. Ein Parteiverbot ist das absolut schärfste Schwert in einer Demokratie. Es darf nur die letzte Zuflucht sein und die Hürde für seinen Einsatz muss sehr, sehr hoch liegen. Im Fall der HDP gibt es mehr als nachhaltige Zweifel an der Angemessenheit dieses Vorgehens. Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, wir erkennen an, dass die Türkei in der jüngsten Vergangenheit und in der Gegenwart erheblichen Herausforderungen und Bedrohungen ausgesetzt ist, im Inland wie in der Nachbarschaft. Von dem Putschversuch über den Terrorismus der PKK und die Konflikte in Irak und Syrien. Aber die Antwort auf diese Herausforderung kann nicht in der Kriminalisierung von politischen Konkurrenten in einer Demokratie liegen. Die innere Verfasstheit der Türkei darf nicht immer mehr in Widerspruch mit ihren eigenen strategischen Interessen geraten. Die türkische Regierung wird vor einigen wesentlichen Entscheidungen stehen. Es muss darum gehen, die institutionelle Anbindung der Türkei an den Rest Europas zu verstärken und zu befestigen und nicht weiter zu verschlechtern. Die Mitgliedschaft der Türkei im Europarat in Frage zu stellen, in Gefahr zu bringen, widerspricht den elementaren Interessen der Türkei, diese widerspricht den elementaren Grundsätzen unserer Organisation, Meine Fraktion wird diese Vorgänge sehr aufmerksam weiter verfolgen.
Thank you, Andreas. We now have Jacques Maire. Jacques, vous avez la parole.
Oui, merci Monsieur le Président. J'espère que vous m'entendez bien. Ok. Hier, notre collègue, chef de la délégation turque, nous appelait à donner du temps à ses autorités. Donner du temps, mais pour quoi faire? Les autorités turques, en quelques jours, nous ont démontré ce qu'elles entendent faire du temps qui passe. Le 17 mars dernier, le parquet a engagé une procédure devant la Cour constitutionnelle turque pour faire interdire le HDP, troisième force du Parlement. Cette procédure intervient quelques heures après que le Parlement turc a déchu de son mandat le député HDP Kılıçdaroğlu, après la confirmation d'une condamnation à 2 ans et demi, rappelée par mon collègue Franck, et vient s'ajouter à cette attaque contre les libertés fondamentales l'arrestation, ce matin même, d'Öztürk Türkdoğan, le co-président de l'Association des droits de l'homme et grand défenseur des droits humains en Turquie. Cette chronique qui s'accélère montre que la question n'est pas effectivement de donner du temps aux autorités turques, mais de leur faire prendre conscience de façon urgente de la situation. Ça fait maintenant plusieurs années que l'ensemble des organes du Conseil de l'Europe notent une véritable dégradation de la situation en Turquie, aujourd'hui comme dans le passé. Nos co-rapporteurs nous alertent régulièrement sur les arrestations des opposants politiques et les autres atteintes. La Cour européenne épingle systématiquement et de façon de plus en plus pressante les autorités turques. Ces développements s'ajoutent donc à un triste bilan, celui de la répression de l'opposition politique et de la dissidence en Turquie sous le gouvernement de l'AKP. Bien sûr, nous comprenons le contexte géopolitique complexe de la Turquie qui est fait de risques et d'instabilité régionale. Mais dans cette situation difficile, le pluralisme parlementaire et le débat politique permettent de confronter les opinions qui doivent être préservées et non muselées. Dans une démocratie, l'interdiction de partis politiques et les mesures à l'encontre des parlementaires ne peuvent être appliquées qu'en dernier recours, comme nous le rappelle la Cour européenne des droits de l'homme. De telles limitations du débat politique ne peuvent être envisagées que lorsqu'il n'y a aucun doute raisonnable sur le danger public grave et qu'aucune mesure moins restrictive ne puisse le prévenir. Nous ne croyons pas que le danger que représenterait le HDP et ses élus nationaux irait au-delà de ce doute raisonnable, et nous espérons vraiment que les autorités politiques et judiciaires agiront conformément à leurs obligations. Aussi, nous rejoignons nos co-rapporteurs qui ont demandé hier aux autorités turques, je cite, de mettre un terme aux politiques et aux actes qui portent atteinte à la démocratie et à l'état de droit et de se conformer aux arrêts de la Cour, notamment de libérer M. Demirtas et M. Kavala. Je pense, Monsieur le Président, au nom du groupe ALDE, que votre mission est essentielle, qu'il fait important que vous interveniez auprès des autorités turques sur ces différents cas. Je pense que la Turquie doit être consciente que ce qui est en cause aujourd'hui, c'est la question de son appartenance au Conseil de l'Europe.
Merci, Jacques. I now have on my list John Howell. John, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, I am one of the co-rapporteurs with Thomas Hammerberg for the Monitoring Committee on Turkey. And even though we have physically been restricted from visiting Turkey because of the pandemic, we have been very busy issuing statements, as others have alluded to condemn the arrest and detention of parliamentarians particularly. We have also had very good online discussions with students and academics about the situation at the Bosphorus University, where there is great upset over the appointment of the rector. And I just to give you some advance information that at the next meeting of the Monitoring Committee, we're holding a hearing on Resolution 2347 to examine this in much more detail. Now, I'd like to thank Mr. Yildiz for the assistance that he's been able to give us in having discussions with officials. And what we want, and what we've stated right from the beginning that we want above all, is more cooperation with the Turkish authorities. We want them to start to implement the judgments of the European Court of Human Rights, and not to have Turkey as the second largest country with a backlog of human rights to be heard. Now, the situation in Turkey is not a happy one. We have heard that only this morning, police officers raided the offices of Mr. Turkdoğan and arrested him. And of course, lawyers are trying to find out information about his case. Now, I take this, as I said to Mr. Roth this morning, as a personal attack on the Council of Europe, because he has been a great contributor to our roundtables and meetings, and he's been a tireless human rights defender. What he was doing was preparing very documented reports on issues which are of primary concern for the Council of Europe. We have also, in the past week, issued a statement condemning the removal of the indemnity rights that Mr. Gerger, I have difficulty pronouncing this, Mr. Gergeroglu had as a parliamentarian. And just see what the international reaction to this is. The US State Department, which doesn't normally make these sort of comments, has already commented on this to say that it's following events in Turkey very closely, and that it finds the moves very troubling that has taken away the parliamentary immunity of this MP. And it goes on to say that the monitoring of the initiation of efforts to dissolve the People's Democratic Party is a decision that will subvert the will of Turkish voters. Now, this is not a backward organization. This is the US State Department that has been driven to make these sort of comments. And both Thomas Hammarberg and I are absolutely at one with all those members who are standing up now in this debate and condemning the way that Turkey is behaving in this issue.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Now we go to Tini Cox. Tini, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And may I first thank the Standing Committee for allowing us to have this current affairs debate. May I also say that I really pity the fact that the leader of the Turkish delegation, our good colleague Yildiz, did not mention this morning when he opposed this debate that a large part of his delegation surely was not in agreement with him, and that a large part of his delegation wants us to have this debate. May I also thank our co-rapporteurs, Hammarberg and Howell, for their strong statements that they have delivered recently on the new crackdown on the democratic opposition in Turkey. I was also very happy with the statement that State Minister Roth, on behalf of the Committee of Ministers, delivered this morning with regard to the lifting of immunity and the possible closure of the third party of the country, the HDP, and also the statement of our Secretary General on the worrying developments in Turkey is most welcomed by my group of the Unified European Left. We have seen the lifting of immunity of a lot of elected parliamentarians, and the closure, the threatening closure of the third party of the great member state of Turkey. Although we all know, I observed these elections in 2015 and 2016, that HDP was elected on a perfect democratic way, and it should be respected instead of being threatened by other parties who want to use, as it was said by our introductory speaker, Frank Schwabe, they want to use their powers now and their relations to the government to put aside one of their opponents in Parliament. This goes completely against the idea of pluralistic democracy, to which Turkey, as a member state of the Council of Europe, has obliged itself. We have to bear that in mind. We do not demand something from Turkey that is overdone. No, we just ask Turkey, the Turkish authorities, to commit themselves to the obligation that they have taken upon them voluntarily when they joined the Council of Europe. And I hope that they will keep joining the Council of Europe. But as Frank Schwab said right properly, membership of the Council of Europe is not for free. We have had the case of Mr. Mammadov in Azerbaijan. And in the end, the government of Azerbaijan was wise enough to accept that a verdict of the court has to be respected. So I hope that there will be a concerted action of the Committee of Ministers, the Secretary General, and our President when he is going to visit Turkey, to make it completely clear to the Turkish authorities that membership is not for free. You have to commit yourself to your obligations. Otherwise, it's you yourself who put yourself outside of this organization. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Tini. We now go to our next speaker, which is Pierre-Alain Frides. May I also ask Andreas Nick to request for the floor in order for you, Andreas, to take over the meeting, please. So we will give the floor to Andreas Nick. And at this stage, Pierre-Alain, vous avez la parole pour votre intervention. Et comme je vous ai dit, à partir de maintenant, Andreas à la présidence de cette réunion. Andreas, many thanks for taking over. But as you could imagine, we've got some urgent things to attend to immediately. Thank you very much, Andreas. Pierre-Alain, vous avez la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Chers collègues, où va la Turquie? Tout le monde est en droit de se poser la question. Les attaques répétées contre un parti politique, l'exclusion du Parlement de plusieurs membres du HDP, l'emprisonnement pur et simple de députés, l'emprisonnement de journalistes et de défenseurs des droits de l'homme, et j'en passe. Tout cela nous interpelle. Que fait-on à Ankara de certains arrêts de la CEDH et des injonctions du Comité des ministres du Conseil de l'Europe, telles celles demandant la libération immédiate de M. Demirtas? Comment justifier la détention de tant de prisonniers politiques? Et maintenant, il est question d'interdire purement et simplement un parti politique représenté au sein du Parlement turc, le HDP, parce que les membres de ce parti contreviendraient aux règles et lois de la démocratie. Un parti avec des députés élus démocratiquement, un parti avec des maires élus démocratiquement. Et certains membres de ce parti siègent au sein de notre assemblée parlementaire, et nous avons pu constater l'esprit empreint de valeurs démocratiques avec lequel ces députés accomplissent leurs tâches parmi nous. On leur reproche une soi-disant collusion avec un groupe terroriste et une volonté de détruire l'État turc. De l'extérieur, vu l'intensité de la répression qui frappe le pays, on a plutôt l'impression que toute opposition au pouvoir est une opposition de trop. Cette dérive inquiète. Chers collègues, la démocratie est notre mère à tous, nous les pays membres du Conseil de l'Europe, avec ses valeurs de respect, de tolérance, de justice égale pour tous, avec ses bienfaits protecteurs pour l'ensemble de nos concitoyennes et concitoyens. Mais cette démocratie a aussi des exigences qui nous engagent, l'état de droit et les droits de l'homme, la liberté d'expression et d'association, la pluralité des partis, la séparation des pouvoirs. La Turquie est un grand pays, une nation qui a pleinement sa place dans la communauté internationale, un pays qui apporte aide et protection à des millions de réfugiés, en particulier venant de Syrie. Nous tenons ici à exprimer notre reconnaissance à l'égard du peuple turc. Mais dans sa lecture de l'état de droit et des valeurs démocratiques, la Turquie doit se réveiller. Et nous aimerions rappeler cette phrase célèbre du philosophe français Voltaire. Je ne suis pas d'accord avec ce que vous dites, mais je me battrai pour que vous puissiez continuer à le dire. Chers collègues, ne pas être d'accord avec le pouvoir en place ne signifie pas automatiquement être un terroriste. C'est un raccourci trop simpliste. Le groupe socialiste appelle au dialogue, encore et toujours, au respect de la pluralité des idées et de l'opinion d'autrui. Le HDP doit continuer à conserver sa juste place dans le débat démocratique en Turquie. Merci pour votre attention.
Merci. Next speaker is Madame Dora Bakoyannis from Greece.
Hello, good afternoon, dear colleagues. Let me start by saying that I agree with everything which was already said by our colleagues. I just would like to add a few thoughts. We have said this before time and time again. And since last year, this time, the monitoring committee and the standing committee discussed the actions of Turkey taken against Mr. Demirtas and Mr. Kavalas, against 46 elected mayors, stripped from their position and thrown in jail, how democracy and human rights were in the fallback. 1 year later, dear colleagues, and practically the whole situation has not changed, but it has deteriorated. And the truth is that I want to agree with what Mr. Cox said. The whole party of Mr. Erdogan does not agree with this policy. And the truth is that they are doing it because they are practically under the obligation to stand by the ultra-nationalistic party of Mr. Bakhshili. Mr. Bakhshili has asked and urged Mr. Erdogan, because he is the only one who works with him today, to make this very difficult decision for the Kurdish party. Now, what is our role and what can we do? We cannot accept, dear colleagues, this situation anymore. Now, everybody is talking, the United States, the European Union, our Council of Ministers. But we, dear colleagues, when President Dems goes to Turkey, he has to be very, very clear with his message and very outspoken. If he wants really to support the real Democrats, which exist also in the AKP party, who fights today. So it is very important that our chair sends a very clear message that the Council of Europe will never accept members of parliament being put in jail. As you rightly say, Andreas, the members of parliament belong to parliament and not to jail. Let me just add one point more. It is remarkable that in the case of Mr. Gerginoglu, the Turkish authorities proceeded with the stripping of his parliamentary seat before even the Constitutional Court had a chance to review his appeal. So it was not a decision of the judiciary. The decision was taken before the judiciary expressed itself. Dear colleagues, the support to the Turkish people has to be articulated now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mr. Yildiz from Turkey.
Thank you, Andreas. A challenging job. Dear colleagues, indeed, I will explain the cases and my thoughts, but at the beginning, I should say that most of the statements by previous speakers, I think, undeliberately misrepresented the situation in Turkey because of the wrong linkages between the political rhetoric, it is very harsh in Turkey always, and the judicial process. May I urge the colleagues that maybe ambassadors here in Ankara may analyze it better because they live here to get reports, because in many previous cases, the Turkish judiciary proved its independence against the political rhetoric. Of course, Turkey has to fight against terrorism to protect its sovereignty and rights of its citizens, while the political parties are inalienable elements of our democracy. But it does not give them right to act with terrorist organizations. On HDP, the chief public prosecutor of the Court of Cassation this is the Attorney General, the public prosecutor, lodged an application to the Constitutional Court for the closure of the HDP on the grounds that the HDP acts together with the PKK, an internationally recognized terrorist organization which is still continuing its terrorist actions. Recently, they executed 13 hostages. Of course, the HDP, I don't know what they talk to you, but when they talk to their audience here in their public meetings, in election meetings, they never hide their links with the PKK. They talk about it, they advocate it. Chairman of the party says that we lean on PKK. With these statements, they aim at manipulating the elections, intimidating the people who were against them. Chairman of the party openly says in the meetings, in the public meetings, that when talking about Kandil, they are our comrades, they are our friends, they are our partners. Of course, as I said, I cannot prejudge what the Constitutional Court will decide, because in similar cases in the past, the highest court in Turkey, sometimes they ban the party, sometimes they applied some less punishments, such as cutting the public funding or banning not just only a few members on the position of leadership. Dear colleagues, I study here this issue, analyze this issue to be correct to you and to myself, but still I don't feel confident enough to judge, to prejudge. I was in the session of the, of course, stripping of the immunity of Mr. Gergerlioğlu. I don't know how you are so confident to prejudge. You should analyze better the cases on the court, especially the recent decision of the court on Enis Berberoğlu, a similar case to the Mr. Haluk Gergerlioğlu. On Haluk Bey, on Faruk Bey, Ömer Faruk Gergerlioğlu, on the same context as well, judicial sentence regarding his strip of immunity was upheld. His punishment was, his sentence, his conviction was upheld by the Court of Cassation. In other words, he can go to Constitutional Court. But according to the Turkish Constitution, as for the lifting of the parliamentary immunity or loss of membership, in line with the constitutional article of the Constitution, the immunity falls when this final judgment of the Cassation Court is read in the Parliament. It is not voted in the Parliament. And this is made possible with the agreement of the opposition in previous years, in recent years. It was an agreed article in the Parliament. Of course, we can talk anything here as in a parliamentary atmosphere, but it doesn't serve any purpose, I should admit. As the political rhetoric.
Mr. Yildiz, you are going much over time. Could you please conclude?
Well, when I say that it is a rush, I urge to wait for the Constitutional Court, because in a similar case to the Ömer Faruk Gergerlioğlu's case, the Constitutional Court on the immunity issue decided insistently in favor of the defendant, and it prevailed. It is applied.
Mr. Yildiz, please conclude.
Okay, I conclude here. Of course, this wronging.
You have already run double. You have run the double time of speak. I was not made aware of the secretariat. I'm sorry. We need to come to an end here.
Thank you, Andreas. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was not realizing they're running over while Mr. Yildiz spoke. Next speaker is Mr. Sadov from Azerbaijan.
Actually, I don't understand how it's possible to prejudge the decision of the Constitutional Court before the real decision of the Constitutional Court. We are the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and that's why I think we have to be much more responsible than we are. That's a very, very essential. The second, during the presentation of my colleagues, that they said about some rumors, some information, I asked my colleagues and friends to speak about the real facts. And during the presentation of Mr. Schwabe, because, for example, he said this real fact, that 27% at the parliament is belonging to opposition. He said that today civil society in Turkey is really very strong. And that's really true. If civil society is strong, his opposition has so very many places at the parliament, how can it possible? Any kind of democracy has problems. And it seems to me that sometimes we try to analyze and discuss Turkey not because of some kind of problems, but because of independent policy which Turkey provides. Because Turkey today fighting against terror. And we know, we as Azerbaijan, we know what doesn't mean terror. You have mentioned also the name of my country, and that's understandable because we also suffered from terror. And it seems to me that something strange is going on. Those who are fighting against evil, those against terror, becoming a subject for discussion, which is absolutely unacceptable. If we are looking for the real values, we should take into account that millions of refugees came to Turkey. If we are going to do some serious steps, we should take into account that Turkey today is doing the job which we all together should do. And sometimes it seemed to me that instead of analyzing Turkey in such rash and not so understandable way, in some European countries we should start investigation as a problems which existing and relating to Islamophobia, to xenophobia, to anti-Semitism. And that's why I ask my colleagues and friends to refrain from this kind of approach to Turkey. Turkey is doing today very constructive job, not only within the Council of Europe, but within the wider region. And from this point of view, we should support, we should do our best in order to understand and to do our best for Turkey as a co-founder of the Council of Europe. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I had a call for floor by Mr. Pochai, but this has disappeared again. I'm not sure it is still on, or maybe that was a point of order because of the overrun by Mr. Yildiz on time, which I apologize. I didn't realize immediately from remote. And now I have Mr. Pochai asking for the floor. Please, Alex.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm not going to repeat everything what was said here. If I'm taking the floor, this is just to show to our Turkish friends that I don't want this debate to have normal actors. That there is some parliamentarians who are taking care about what's going on in Turkey, and from the other side, always there is two countries that are representatives of two countries, and we know that they are going to say that everything is all right. No, this is not all right. And what's going on in judiciary? What's going on with the journalists? And now you should not be our Turkish friends. you should not be surprised that we are worrying before even us that everything goes to the wrong direction. And we cannot all the time, and you cannot all the time, hide everything behind terrorism. Because slowly, I know that you have the serious problems, but I know also this way, which leads to say that everything which is wrong, wrong, against the power, you are giving them the etiquette, the stick, that this is a terrorism. It is very easy to fight opposition, calling that they are against the order. So don't take this path. Don't go that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further requests for the floor. If I'm right, Despina, is this the case?
Yes, President. We couldn't hear Mr. Poche. At some stage, we lost him, and I see messages from other members saying they couldn't hear him. So I don't know if.
Well, I could all of the time, so that I didn't realize that from my end.
Mrs. Andrikina Laima, for instance, wrote that couldn't. So I hope there were only a few who couldn't hear the whole speech.
Mr.
Now we have Mr. Poche again.
Mr. Poche is asking for the floor again. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Despina. No, if that was only few people who did not hear, I'm not going to repeat because I understand that most of our members and our colleagues, they heard what I said. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So with this, the speakers list is closed and we have come to the end of this debate. I would then call point number 12 on the agenda, which is a report by the Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee, the debate on the report on urgent need to strengthen financial intelligence units, sharper tools needed to improve confiscation of illegal assets, document 15192 from the Committee of Legal Affairs and Human Rights. This report will be presented by the rapporteur, Mrs. Evarsdottir from Iceland Socialist Group. Ms. Evarsdottir, you have 10 minutes in total, which you may divide between presentation of the report and reply to the debate. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dear President, dear colleagues, I am pleased to present to you today my final report on the urgent need to strengthen financial intelligence units and sharper tools needed to improve the confiscation of illegal assets. As we have concluded several times over the past years, there's a critical need to keep the fight against corruption high on our agenda. Numerous scandals, including the recent FinCEN leaks, have shown that national and international efforts aimed at combating money laundering and terrorist financing are still insufficient. According to the World Bank, the profits from organized crime and high-level corruption amount to several trillions, that is to say, thousands of billions of US dollars each year. And only a tiny fraction of this is successfully confiscated. The remainder accumulates in the hands of organized criminals, corrupt public officials, and terrorists. This enormous financial firepower is a huge threat for democracy, the rule of law, and national security in all of our countries. At the same time, successful confiscation of illegal assets is a huge opportunity for states to generate resources which are badly needed to address the social problems, rising inequalities, corruption, and terrorism, and the problems caused by organized crime. Urgent action to step up the tracking and confiscation of the proceeds of crime is therefore both necessary to protect the rule of law and democracy as we know it, and it is also potentially highly rewarding. Financial intelligence units, or FIUs, receive hundreds of thousands of suspicious transaction reports, or so-called STRs, from financial and non-financial institutions. These comply more and more regularly with relevant regulations under threat of heavy penalties. However, recent reports conclude that whilst the number of STRs increases, only a very small percentage of these result in successful asset recovery. For example, in 2014, FIUs in the European Union received altogether almost 1 million suspicious transaction reports, amongst which 65% were sent to the FIUs in the United Kingdom and the Netherlands alone. On average, just 10% of these reports to FIUs in the European Union led to a further investigation. This figure has not changed since 2006. And even more regretfully, only 1% of criminal proceeds were successfully confiscated. So, there clearly is a lot of room for improvement of the so-called conversion rate, which is the measure of success for FIUs. That is to say, how many of these transaction reports turn into further action and prosecution. Now, the draft resolution includes several concrete proposals to strengthen FIUs. These proposals are the fruit of the insight provided by, among others, representatives of Greco and Moneyval, the Council of Europe's leading anti-corruption and anti-money laundering bodies. One proposal is to keep better statistics on conversion rates. The ones I just quoted are 6 years old and concern only EU countries. Good statistics would allow the comparison of results achieved by different working methods so that the FIUs can learn from each other. Financial intelligence units should also be enabled to enter into a constructive dialogue with the reporting entities on one side to help improve the quality of STRs, these suspicious transaction reports, and with law enforcement bodies, i.e. the police and prosecution, on the other side. In this way, FIUs receive better feedback on what their law enforcement partners need from them in order to act on the FIU reports more efficiently. Another proposal is to allow all FIUs to temporarily freeze suspicious transactions, pending further investigation or pending the grant of a court order. This is already the case in Moneyval member countries, but not in others. FIUs should also be given the resources they need to supervise suspicious activities of non-financial actors such as casinos, property agencies, and luxury goods sellers, where a lot of money laundering is happening. And last but not least, FIUs should be allowed to cooperate more efficiently with one another, share intelligence, and act on it before the assets disappear for good. The recently disclosed FinCEN documents demonstrate that the existing framework is still far too weak. The documents show that even large, globally operating banks defied the rules and continued working on a massive scale with clients about whose activities they had themselves sent FinCEN, the American version of financial intelligence units, suspicious transaction or activity reports. And one of the best-known European experts in the field, Mr. Daniel Telesklav, former chair of Moneyval and until recently head of the Swiss Money Laundering Reporting Office, known as MROS, recently blew the whistle on the weakness of the Swiss money laundering system. He dared name the most important problem, namely the lack of political will. In Switzerland, the 60 MRO's staffers were hopelessly overwhelmed with huge numbers of suspicious transaction reports. These were often presented in bulk on paper, requiring a lot of manpower just to seize the data in MRO software. Mr. Telesklav also pointed out that the Swiss law enforcement depended on mutual legal assistance from the countries of origin of the funds. But as long as the suspects had not fallen out of grace with the corrupt regimes of their countries, such assistance was never forthcoming. The only realistic solution, in Mr. Telesklav's opinion, would be a reversal of the burden of proof, enabling the confiscation of funds, except when the account holder can prove their legitimate origin. I should like to recall that this solution was strongly recommended by the Assembly in Resolution 2218. Our then rapporteur, Mr. van de Veen, showed that this did not violate the presumption of innocence or the protection of property under the Convention. The European Court of Human Rights has already accepted such laws in Ireland and Italy, so it really just boils down to a question of political will. I strongly suspect that a lack of political will is a problem in many countries, including my own. Given on the one hand, the threat to our democracies posed by the huge amount of dirty money flowing almost freely through our countries, and on the other hand, the potential gains to be made from confiscating a greater share of it, I really do wonder what us politicians are waiting for and why, because it is in the people's interest to act on this very important issue now. So I encourage you all, dear colleagues, to accept my report, and I look forward to the discussions ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Evasdottir. As far as I can see, I have no one asking for the floor at the moment. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct, Mr. President.
So I ask again, is anyone asking for the floor on this report and discussion?
Mr. Silevic, at least.
Mr. Silevic? I assume Mr. Silevic speaking on behalf of the committee?
Yes, thank you, President. This is a very clear report, and it deals with extremely important issue. Indeed, the corruption, money laundering, and so on. It used to be the major disease of our societies, maybe before COVID-19 appeared, came to the fore, but it's certainly comparable even now during the situation of pandemic. And this report is very practical. I believe this is one of its main assets. So it's unfortunately no need to conceal this. Quite often we include some just declarations to our resolutions. They are good, but not implemented in practice because really no technical solutions are suggested. This report is completely different. And Mrs. Evasdottir suggests very practical solutions, and I can't agree more that indeed the political will is needed. Sometimes these decisions might be seen as somewhat questionable, but I believe that the explanatory memorandum contains very good reasoning and substantiation why these suggested measures are to the benefit of our societies. So this is indeed one of the subject topics which are permanently on the table by the Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights. And Sunna already mentioned in her presentation previous work done by Mr. Van de Ven. And I believe that the rapporteur very decently continues this line and goes further than the previous rapporteurs. So I'm grateful to our rapporteur for this excellent work. And I call upon all members of the Assembly to support this report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was Mr. Cilevic on behalf of the Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights. So Mrs. Evasdottir has asked for the floor again. Normally, I think the chairman of the committee would speak after the rapporteur and not the other way around, but I assume you have something to add. I give the floor to Mrs. Evasdottir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, just seeing that the discussion is coming to a close, I would just like to use my last 2 minutes to conclude. I would also like to point out that we saw the Panama Papers happening in 2016, and we haven't seen much happening after that in terms of actually dealing with what we see as a huge, large global scale issue, which is that the rich and powerful, governments, government officials, organized crime indeed, but also the famous and wealthy keep their money away from the public. They gain their money on the public infrastructure that the public has put in place with their work, but they hide it away from the public to save themselves some coins, people that do have a lot of money to spare. This is a threat to our democracy. It is a huge, huge injustice that has not been repaired. Yet we've seen revelation after revelation that the financial institutions globally support this kind of practices, support the rich, the powerful, the wealthy in hiding away the money from where it should be taxed, from where it should be used to the public good, and from where it should be used to protect our democracies. It undermines the public's trust in our public officials, in our societies. It spreads apathy towards the society that we are trying to build, where everybody has a seat at the table and everybody has an opportunity to participate free of poverty and free of fear of the violation of their most basic and fundamental rights. There's a direct connection between money laundering, hidden swollen bank accounts, and the dwindling of our democracies. And the fact that all of the countries in the Council of Europe are not doing enough to combat money laundering. It tells us a big story about where the political impetus is missing. And it is upon us, dear colleagues, to truly do something about this, because we have the kindle of democracy in our hands. And if we don't respond adequately to this enormous threat and fetch all this money for the people that we represent, we are failing in our role as public officials, as servants of the people. So I encourage you all to accept this report, but much more, I encourage you to actively work towards combating money laundering and strengthening financial intelligence units in your home countries, because that is where this work is truly needed and where it will have a big impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this concludes the debate on this report, and we shall now proceed to the vote. I would like to remind you that only members of the Standing Committee are entitled to vote. We first vote on the draft resolution in document 15192. The Committee on Legal Affairs has presented a draft resolution to which no amendments have been tabled. So we will now proceed to that resolution contained in document 15192. To be adopted, a simple majority is required. I think we have a quorum of 14 that has to be respected, and I declare the vote open. If we proceed without any difficulty, I would give another 15 seconds. The vote is closed.
Sorry, Mr. President.
Sorry?
Mr. President, can you please let me check if there was the quorum?
I think I get 3 messages that members could not vote. Can you please clarify if 4 members at least have now messaged that they could not vote?
Yes, that's why. Please let me check.
Okay, so we go back.
Je sais pas ce qui se passe.
Despina, I think we had the same problem this morning. Now I don't vote anyhow, but it seems that even members who have registered with their voting link are shown the message that they are not authorized to vote. I had this problem this morning in the first attempt as well. So there seems to be something wrong in the system.
Okay, now we have 21 people who have voted, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Of whom 15 yes.
But I see at least 8 messages of members who could not vote. So I think this is not acceptable.
Okay, let me check that, please.
Okay.
I cannot vote. Okay.
And what I see is that there is a message coming up, and I had the same problem this morning, which says only eligible members are allowed to vote. And this seems to be displayed also to members who have registered with their link as members of the standing committee.
It is normal if people do not have the right to vote that they cannot vote, President. So I will check for those who say they had a problem if they had the right to vote.
I think most of them have, from what I saw. I mean, most of them are heads of national delegation or vice presidents. They have the vote.
Mr. President,
yes.
The technical support is telling me there has indeed been a problem with the voting list. So if we can please cancel this vote.
Of course we will. Vote is cancelled.
Please give us a few minutes.
Sure.
And we'll tell you when the vote can be open again.
Because the problem this morning apparently was that, because I had to double check this myself, that even members who had registered with the participants link were treated as if they were viewers and not participants.
Mr. President, the technical support is redoing the voting list. That's why it takes a few moments.
Sure.
I apologize for that. They are doing their best to do it as quickly as possible. Okay, now normally the vote is open.
Okay, I declare the vote open.
President, we have largely the quorum. We have 20 people who have voted. If you want, you can declare the vote closed.
I've just, at least Madame Triss has confirmed this is okay. Did anyone have problems casting their vote? Then please send a message to chat just to make sure we don't have, other than Madame Triss, I have seen no message and she was okay. Okay, I get a whole bunch of positive responses, so I assume we are okay, and I declare the vote closed and ask for the result to be displayed. So we have 20 in favor. This is even too small for my classes. Not, 0 abstentions and 0 objections, if I see that correctly. Is that right? 20-0-0, is that right?
It's 20-0-0, President, and I can do it for you because I can.
Okay, because it's almost impossible to read even with my glasses on my screen.
I have a
bigger screen. Okay, so the draft resolution is adopted, and we come to the vote on the draft recommendation. Again, no amendments have been tabled to this document as presented by the Committee on Legal Affairs and Human Rights. So we shall now proceed to vote on the draft recommendation contained in document 1519 2. To be adopted, a 2/3 majority is required, and I declare the vote open. I assume this works now without problems. So I leave a few more seconds for votes. Okay, I declare the vote as and ask results to be displayed. Ms. Pina, can you read this out? It's
President, 20 positive votes, 0 negative, 0 abstentions. So both resolution and recommendation.
sorry, I see, Ms. Pina, I see different results.
Sorry.
I see at least one abstentions on my screen. In the,
I'm sorry, I was reading the results of the resolution.
the previous one. Okay, so it's 19 yes and 1 abstention, if that's correct.
Yes, President, you are right. Thank you.
19 yes, 1 abstention. So the recommendation is also approved. I congratulate the rapporteur and the committee, and I use the opportunity, if that is not hopefully a violation of data privacy, to congratulate the rapporteur, Mrs. Eversdottir, also to the birth of her child, which happened recently. So one more baby for the assembly, and one more report and recommendation approved. All the best, Suna, to you and your child. We come to the next item, which is the debate on the report Impact of Labor Migration on Left Behind Children, document 15173 from the Committee on Social Affairs, Health and Sustainable Development, for which the Committee on Migration, Refugees and Displaced Persons has been seized for opinion, which will be presented by Mr. Oleksiy Goncharenko, and the report will be presented by the rapporteur, Mr. Badea, Romania, EPP. I call Mr. Badea to present the report. You have 10 minutes in total, which you may divide between the presentation of the report and reply to the debate. Mr. Badea, please. Can you give the floor to Mr. Badea, please?
Buonasera cari colleghi, prima di tutto sono molto contento di rivedervi e vi ringrazio per darmi la possibilità di sostenere questo tema molto importante davanti alla Commissione. Prima di tutto posso dire che ho avuto l'idea di redigere una relazione che riguarda questo argomento molto sensibile dei figli rimasti nei paesi d'origine, perché si tratta di una realtà molto dolorosa, da cui, parlando dal punto di vista istituzionale, purtroppo siamo ancora molto lontano nel trovare le migliori soluzioni. Questa mia iniziativa si aggiunge a una relazione riguardante il diritto al lavoro dei lavoratori domestici, soprattutto donne in Europa, che è stata la fonte per la risoluzione dell'Assemblea 2167 del 2017, che è stata già adottata. La situazione dei figli i cui genitori sono al lavoro all'estero è molto preoccupante, estremamente preoccupante. Il fenomeno della migrazione della manodopera è generato, alquanto spesso, da una situazione economica fragile che ha spinto molte persone di cercare un posto di lavoro ben pagato in mancanza di proposte di lavoro attraenti nei paesi da dove arrivano. La migrazione della manodopera è arrivata con tanti benefici per quelli che hanno trovato un posto di lavoro meglio retribuito, ma anche con una serie di svantaggi. Ci sono intere generazioni di bambini che sono rimasti nei paesi di origine, già che i genitori talvolta per la paura di ritrovare i loro figli istituzionalizzati, li hanno lasciato nella custodia dei nonni, dei fratelli maggiori oppure degli altri parenti. D'altronde questo fenomeno ha generato degli squilibri pericolosissimi sul mercato del lavoro con effetti disastrosi a lungo termine verso l'economia di questi stati e con delle conseguenze gravi sul capitale dei soldi pubblici, soprattutto nel caso dei paesi con un sistema contributivo della pensione. I bambini rimasti nei paesi di origine sono fragili davanti allo sfruttamento tramite il lavoro, davanti allo sfruttamento sessuale e agli abusi, al traffico di persone e alquanto grave al traffico di organi. Il bisogno di affetto, di attenzione e autostima, corroborate con confusione inevitabile della crisi nell'età adolescente, portano i figli alla situazione in cui si confidano nelle promesse dei trafficanti. Secondo una ricerca recente, i figli rimasti nei paesi d'origine possono confrontarsi con delle responsabilità e delle pressioni che non corrispondono all'età e alla maturità che richiedono. Per esempio, ci sono dei bambini che devono cucinare invece che fare i compiti, di sistemare la casa oppure di accudire il giardino perché i loro nonni sono troppo anziani per poterlo fare. In altri casi, la mancanza di una educazione adeguata da parte dei genitori sullo sfondo di una informazione precaria si sono verificate delle situazioni estremamente preoccupanti in cui ragazze da 12-13 anni sono rimaste incinte oppure casi in cui ragazze e ragazzi molto giovani si sono confrontati con la dipendenza dall'alcol e dalla droga. Molti di questi giovani arrivano in età matura con una serie di traumi emozionali che impediscono la loro integrazione nella società. Praticamente assistiamo a un serio dramma di un'intera generazione in Europa. Cari colleghi, la crisi sanitaria generata dalla pandemia di Covid-19 è arrivata con grosse provocazioni e delle difficoltà sia per i genitori andati al lavoro all'estero, sia per i figli rimasti a casa. Molti genitori si trovano nell'incertezza di aver preso i posti di lavoro e i soldi mandati nei paesi di origine hanno registrato una diminuzione sostanziale. Il trend che sarà mantenuto sembra per un lungo periodo di tempo. In Romania, per esempio, il problema dei figli di cui i genitori sono andati a lavoro all'estero è stata analizzata durante il dialogo del gruppo di lavoro interistituzionale creato nel 2016, nella custodia del presidente della Romania, Klaus Iohannis. L'attività di questo gruppo di lavoro si è conclusa con l'approvazione nel novembre del 2018 di una relazione che ha formulato una serie di raccomandazioni in politiche pubbliche che sono state messe in atto dai protagonisti in questo campo. Per mettere in opera queste raccomandazioni, il governo della Romania, tramite il Ministero dei Fondi Europei, ha avuto l'iniziativa nel febbraio di quest'anno del programma base di stimolare la partecipazione all'educazione dei bambini con i genitori al lavoro all'estero. Questo riassunto di misure integrate lanciate durante il programma operazionale Capitale Umano dell'Unione Europea riguarda il sostegno in un primo tempo di 3.000 bambini di cui i genitori lavorano all'estero e le misure riguardano i bambini dell'asilo, degli alunni delle scuole primarie e medie, studenti del liceo, ma anche dei genitori oppure i tutori dei figli rimasti a casa nelle regioni meno sviluppate della Romania. Tramite questo programma saranno finanziati i programmi integrati di servizi per gli alunni che riguardano i servizi di sostenimento educazionale, psicosociali di aiuto, delle attività per stimolare la partecipazione all'educazione e all'attività per consigliare i bambini, compreso le attività ricreative e di socializzare, dei servizi di educazione parentali e del consigliamento sociale per rappresentanti legali dei figli rimasti nel paese. Nel mese di giugno quest'anno sono stati depositati già i progetti per il finanziamento dalla parte dei sollecitanti eligibili, rispettivamente le scuole pubbliche e private, i fornitori di servizi di orientamento oppure consiglio educazionale, partner sociali e l'insegnamento preuniversitario. Cari colleghi, tramite il voto della risoluzione della raccomandazione in seguito al progetto di rapporto, desidero di riuscire a prendere coscienza, come decidenti politici, che è proprio necessaria la diminuzione della migrazione della manodopera determinata dalla povertà, che il miglioramento della protezione dei bambini dalla parte dei paesi di origine è vitale, che l'aiuto per riunificare la famiglia può essere una soluzione valida e che tutte queste tre cose messe insieme non possono essere raggiunte che tramite l'impegno di rispettare dei standard comuni e il promuovere la cooperazione internazionale in questo campo, specialmente tramite la ratifica dei strumenti giuridici internazionali rilevanti. Mille grazie.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur, and also thank you, Andreas, for taking over this period. It's always nice to be able to count on good expertise in terms of chairmanship, so thank you for that. I will now call on Mr. Goncharenko or Mr. Fides, depending on who is available, to present the opinion of the Committee on Migration, Refugees and Displaced Persons. I see that Mr. Goncharenko is with us now. Alex, you have the floor.
Hello, dear colleagues. And first of all, I wish everybody good health. And yes, I have an honor to be a rapporteur on opinion from Migration Committee. There are a number of amendments which we prepared, and I would like to thank our colleagues from Social Committee. Majority of these amendments on behalf of the Migration Committee are accepted. There is only one which I would like to raise the question. I don't think that I need to point to all the amendments. You can find them in the documents. All of them are accepted by Social Affairs Committee, except one, where we have some discussion. We're speaking about amendment number 3. In this amendment, I now will co-vote it like it was proposed by our committee. Moreover, the Assembly is alarmed by the hardship of children in the regions affected by military conflicts. Military actions lead to displacement and migration, which put children at risk of being left without parents. In Ukraine, many families are separated because of the Russian aggression. Parents often stay in the occupied territories, while children are sent to live with the grandparents in the free territories. That was our amendment, which was accepted by Migration Committee. Proposition was supported. And Mr. Bada, by the way, I would like to say thank you to Rapporteur for great work that he has done on these reports. And Mr. Bada proposed a sub-amendment to this amendment. He proposed to put it like this: many families are separated because of ongoing frozen or protracted conflicts across Europe. So like more general, in more general way. But because Ukraine now is the biggest such issue, because we're speaking about millions of refugees from the eastern part of our country because of Russian aggression. So I think that it's important to name Ukraine as the biggest problem for the moment, because it is the biggest problem, unfortunately, for the moment. So that's why I would like to ask Standing Committee to support Amendment 3 like it was proposed by our committee. That's the only thing in which we have discussion. Everything else, we have absolute agreement at everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Okay. The floor is now open for discussion. Are there any colleagues who wish to have the floor? I don't really see any. In that case, Signore Badea, do you wish? Oops, there's someone coming in. I see Maria Mezentieva. Maria, you have the floor.
Merci, le Président. Sorry for this technical issue. I think we cannot agree more, as not only members of the Migration Committee, which deals with displacement of children, with refugees and internally displaced people, which are children in our case. We're talking about 1.3 approximate million people who were displaced from their homeland, and 30% of which are children. And that is very interesting when we travel across the countries, not only in Ukraine, but also those ones who were affected by the protracted, not yet frozen conflicts. And we see in the eyes of children the pain while they are separated from their parents, might be grandparents as well, while they're separated from their homeland. And this is a high prioritized issue for us as a council, as a parliamentary assembly in general. I highly call for all the members to support amendment number 3, which was agreed by the Migration Committee. Merci, le Président.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishes the floor? I see Pierre Tolstoy. Pierre, tu as la parole. Pierre, tu as la parole.
Российская делегация выступает категорически против этой поправки. Она носит лживый и политизированный характер, как и многие поправки наших украинских коллег, к сожалению, и делает этот доклад для нас абсолютно неприемлемым. Если мы хотим сохранить в Совете Европы общепринятые решения, достигнутые консенсусом, предлагаю эту поправку не поддерживать и поддерживаю формулировку докладчика. Спасибо.
Merci Pierre. Je ne vois plus personne qui demande la parole. So, I now call on our rapporteur, Mr. Badea, to respond. Mr. Badea, signore Badea, you have the floor.
Grazie Presidente. Praticamente nella Commissione Sociale noi abbiamo votato questo sottoemendamento per dare un'immagine generale delle situazioni in tutti i paesi europei, in tutti i paesi del Consiglio d'Europa. Per questo non abbiamo punteggiato su un certo paese, perché così abbiamo considerato che è più oggettivo e così ci troviamo nello spirito dell'assemblea parlamentare. Grazie Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. Rapporteur. Does the chairman of the Committee on Social Affairs, Mr. Lady Ramos, wish to take the floor? Okay, Chair, you have the floor.
Oui, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Rick, je voudrais bien tout d'abord remercier les contributions de la Commission des migrations, aussi remercier et féliciter M. Badea pour son travail et son excellent rapport. Ce rapport soulève une question importante qui est souvent négligée dans nos pays. Les enfants restés au pays sont un groupe vulnérable qui reste pour la plupart invisible et dont les besoins ne sont pas toujours pris en compte par les décideurs d'une manière adéquate. Ce problème est particulièrement aggravé dans le contexte de la pandémie actuelle. Alors que nous sommes en face d'une urgence sanitaire, il est difficile de répondre en même temps aux défis jugés secondaires. Cependant, comme souligne à juste titre ce rapport, priver des millions d'enfants de protection parentale est une violation massive des droits humains et menace inutilement la stabilité de la prospérité de nos pays. Il est clair qu'il n'y a pas de solution simple. J'espère que ce rapport va être utile pour ne pas laisser de côté la situation des enfants restés au pays, malgré la situation actuelle qui est particulièrement difficile pour nous tous. J'espère également que nos recommandations vont inciter un débat constructif dans nos parlements et dans nos sociétés pour une migration à visage humain. J'espère que nous aurons réussi à mettre toute la lumière possible sur l'intérêt supérieur de l'enfant dans nos politiques migratoires, à tenir compte des avis des migrants et de leurs enfants et à mettre en place des approches socialement durables. Je vous remercie.
Merci, Président. Le débat dès lors est clos. So the Committee on Social Affairs, Health and Sustainable Development has presented a draft resolution on impact of labor migration and left behind, to which 11 amendments and 2 sub-amendments have been tabled. I would like to remind you that amendments from 4 to 8, that is 4, 6, 7, 8, to the draft resolution were unanimously adopted by the Committee on Social Affairs, Health and Sustainable Development. Therefore, if no member objects, we can apply Rule 34.11 in order for them to be declared adopted. Any objections? If so, please ask for the floor. I don't see any. Therefore, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 amendments to the draft resolution are adopted in accordance with the mentioned Rule 34.11. Now we need to consider the other amendments individually. They will be taken in the order in which they appear in the compendium of amendments. You have that thing, you know, it's on the right, you see all these amendments. Speeches on amendments, I recall, are limited to 1 minute. Okay, we start off with, and we got a lot of votes here, so stay ready with your finger on the button. Who would like to support amendment number 1? Mr. Goncharenko, Mr. Frides? I don't see anyone asking for the floor. What is the opinion of the committee? Mr. Ramos?
Merci. La commission s'est prononcée pour cet amendement, favorable à cet amendement.
Okay, I see in the meantime that Pierre-Alain Frides asks for the floor. We're a bit, may I ask that everyone is timely in asking for the floor. So, Pierre-Alain, vous avez la parole.
Oui, Monsieur le Président, c'était juste en fait une proposition pour faire référence à un autre rapport très important sur le sujet de Monsieur Stroé, qui traitait vraiment de la même chose. C'est juste un complément.
Merci. So, now I turn to the Secretary General. I have the impression everyone agrees, but I suppose we have to vote? We have to vote. Whoa. Let's hope the machine works. Okay, I am looking to my left side. Is the vote open? The vote is open. Please vote. "15 seconds. 10 seconds. This is just to make everyone a little bit nervous, right? Because it's going too smoothly. Signore Vadea, I'm making you nervous, or trying to at least. Vote closed. What is the result? Okay.
You want me to announce the result?
No, it's clear. It's all green, and I see that Piotr Tolstoy abstained. So the amendment is carried. We go to amendment number 2. Okay. The Secretary General wishes to announce the results. Ms. Pina?
17 votes yes, no negative votes, 1 abstention.
Okay, so the amendment is carried. We now pass on amendment number 2. Who wishes to support amendment number 2? Mr. Goncharenko or Mr. Frides? Let me look at my screen. I see Alex Goncharenko. Alex, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. Mr. Badea's report rings the alarm bell about the high number of families in Europe affected by labor migration today and the children left behind. I suggest that including a specific reference from his report at the beginning of the draft resolution to further highlight how dramatic situation is in Europe. So I would like to ask to support it. Thank you.
Now, there is a sub-amendment to amendment number 2. proposing after the words 1 million children are affected to insert the following words. You have it in your compendium. While in Ukraine, the estimate is about 9 million. May I ask Mr. Badea to support the sub-amendment on behalf of the committee? Mr. Badea?
Sì, sono favorevole, Presidente.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak against the sub-amendment? Mr. Tolstoy, vous avez la parole.
Коллеги, к такому хорошему докладу странно добавляются абсолютно непроверенные цифры. Господин Конференко приводит цифры, которых не существует в природе. Все население Украины порядка 40 миллионов человек, поэтому предполагать, что такое количество детей брошено, просто смешно. Хочу напомнить, что более 1,5 миллиона украинских семей сегодня проживает в Российской Федерации. И Россия справляется с тем, чтобы принять их на своей территории. Спасибо. Я против.
Thank you. Merci, Pierre. Donc, on a eu la défense et on a eu un collègue, Pierre, qui a donné des arguments contre. So we now go to the vote on the sub-amendment. Sorry, interpreters, I'm changing my language. I'll stick to the English from now. So the sub-amendment, not the amendment, the sub-amendment to amendment number 2 is the one that is now on the vote. Vote is open. Please vote. I'm looking to my left. Okay. Please vote. We still need a couple of votes, colleagues. This is always the difficult part when you are online. Sometimes people cannot vote, or I don't know. So I request gently all colleagues to vote. I'm looking to my left. We've got this kind of an understanding that she goes with her hands if I can say that the vote is closed. Okay, it's called sign language. So the vote is closed. Madam Secretary General, would you be so kind as to announce us the result of the vote?
12 positive votes, 2 negative, and 4 abstentions.
So the sub-amendment is accepted, hence changing the amendment number 2 as such. So now we come to the amendment number 2 as it has been amended by the sub-amendment. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment as sub-amended? I don't see. Mr. Goncharenko, you're going to speak against your own amendment? I don't know. Alex, you got the floor.
Dear colleagues, no, I certainly not. We are speaking about amendment number 2. Just I wanted to clarify. Mr. Tolstoy probably maybe he has some problems with reading. This amendment number 9 million was proposed by social committee, not by me, like opinion rapporteur, and not by migration committee. We were speaking about 1 million. So that's the only, but that's not so. I mean, it's not something principle. It's important to put numbers to show the dramacy of the situation. So certainly, I want to support this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone wish to speak against the amendment? Because that is where we are now. We had the argument of Piotr already. What is the opinion of the committee, Monsieur Leite Ramos?
La commission a adopté cet amendement sous-amendé à une large majorité, Monsieur le Président.
Okay, so now I shall put the amendment as it has been sub-amended to the vote. The vote is open. Please vote. Please vote, dear colleagues. I hope that there are not too many of our colleagues in the mood of multitasking. So stick to your screens, please. Vote is closed. Madam Secretary General.
16 yes, 1 against, and 2 abstentions.
Therefore, the amendment number 2, as it has been sub-amended, is agreed upon. Now we come to amendment number 3. Who wishes to support the amendment number 3? Mr. Koncharenko. Alex, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. That's a very important amendment because we are speaking about to show the how severe situation is, because that's a vivid example just to show everybody how children are suffering from such events, which unfortunately now are in the eastern part of Ukraine because of Russian aggression. How children and people and families suffer when one part of their country is occupied by aggressor. So that's why I want to ask everybody just to show why it is about children, why it affects children civilly, to support this amendment as it was proposed by Migration Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Now there is a sub-amendment to amendment number 3, which proposes to replace the last 2 sentences with another sentence, which says, many families are separated because of ongoing frozen or protracted conflicts across Europe. So it's a generalizing sub-amendment to amendment number 3. I call on our rapporteur, Mr. Badea, to support the sub-amendment on behalf of the Committee on Social Affairs. Mr. Badea, Signora Badea.
Grazie Presidente, sono a favore del sottoemendamento così come è stato votato nella Commissione Affari Sociali. Grazie.
Thank you very much. Does anyone wish to speak against the sub-amendment? I see Maria Mezencheva. Maria, you have the floor.
Merci, le Président. I would like to speak against the sub-amendment. I would like to remind you, dear colleagues, we're not talking about some things. We're talking about human beings who are children. And I tried with my whole heart to track you through the life-changing, terrible experience which these kids, children, abandoned ones, not because their parents are bad, are going through, but because the war came to their land. And therefore, I highly recommend to come back to the initial amendment number 3 and for the amendment 3.1 to fall. Merci, le Président.
Thank you very much. So we had amendment number 3, which was defended. We had the sub-amendment on which we are debating now, which has been supported by Mr. Badea with an opinion against by Maria. I shall now put the sub-amendment to the vote. Please vote. I'm seeking the body language to my left. Okay, vote is closed. Madam Secretary General, what are the results?
14 yes, 2 no, 1 abstention.
So the sub-amendment is carried. We now come to the amendment number 3 as sub-amended. Does anyone wish to speak against the modified amendment number 3? I think we heard all the arguments, right? What is the opinion of the Committee on Amendment number 3 as it has been sub-amended, Mr. Magnus?
La Commission a adopté l'amendement 3 sous-amendé par 15 votes à faveur, par 22 votes à faveur, 3 contre et 2 abstentions, donc une large majorité.
Okay, Okay, then I shall now put amendment number 3 as sub-amended to the vote. The vote is open.
Il n'est pas open.
Ah.
Vous les voyez? Attendez.
Just a second, colleagues.
It's not open yet, President.
Okay. So, colleagues, please bide with us until we open the race. Maintenant, c'est bon. Okay, the race is on. Please vote. Vote is closed. Madam Secretary General.
17 yes, 0 no, 2 abstentions.
So the amendment number 3 as sub-amended is carried. Now we come to amendment number 11. Who would like to support amendment number 11? Madam Zaborska, but I don't see her asking for the floor. Anyone against? I don't see anyone either. What is the opinion of the rapporteur? Mr. Badea, what is your opinion, please?
Sono a favore, Presidente, grazie.
The rapporteur is in favor, so we will now vote on the amendment. Is the vote open? Vote is open. Please vote. Vote is closed. Results, please.
18 yes, 0 no, 0 abstention.
So the amendment is carried unanimously. Now we come to amendment number 9. Who wishes to support amendment number 9? Alex, or yeah, Alex, I see you there. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. By this amendment, I would like to highlight the importance of gender implications and the feminization of migration, which can affect seriously the upbringing of children. So I think that's extremely important amendment, and I would like everybody to support this amendment. Thank you very much.
Anyone against? I do not see anyone against. The opinion of the committee, Mr. Lady Ramos.
La Commission a adopté cette proposition d'amendement à une large majorité.
Thank you. So then we'll now vote on the amendment. Is the vote open, Madam Secretary General? Not yet. Not yet. We have to give some vitamins to the machine. Why is it not open everywhere? Okay. Vote is open. Please vote. Vote is closed. Madam Secretary General, what is the result?
18 yes, 0 negative votes, 2 abstentions.
So amendment number 9 is carried. We come now to amendment number 12. Who would like to support amendment number 12? Madam Zaborska or anyone else who signed on it? I don't see anyone. Anyone against? Don't see anyone. What is the opinion of the rapporteur, Signore Badea?
Sono d'accordo, Presidente. A favore.
Agrees. We will now vote on this amendment. Is the vote open? The vote is open. Please vote. Yeah. Vote is open. Please vote. Vote is closed. Madam Secretary General.
19 votes yes, 0 negative votes, 0 abstention.
So the amendment number 12 is carried. We now dealt with all the amendments and come to the vote on the draft resolution contained in document 15173 as we have seen it being amended just a moment ago. To be adopted, a simple majority is required for the draft resolution. Is the vote open? Yep, vote is open. Please vote. So, I'm looking to my left. Vote is closed. Please give us the result.
20 votes in favor, 0 negative votes, 1 abstention.
So the resolution is carried. We now come
Unanimously.
to unanimously. 1 abstention, you said. But that is
Abstention does not affect the unanimity.
aha, okay. Then we come to amendments to the draft recommendation. The Committee on Social Affairs, Health and Sustainable Development has also presented a draft recommendation to which 1 amendment has been tabled. I remind you that speeches on amendments are limited to 1 minute. Who wishes to support amendment number 10? Mr. Goncharenko, Mr. Frides. I see Mr. Frides. Pierre Halin.
Oui, il s'agit en fait du même principe qu'au premier amendement, c'est faire référence dans la recommandation également à ce rapport qui avait été établi à l'époque par M. Strohe, qui traitait en fait en gros du même sujet.
Okay, thank you. Opinion of the committee, Mr. Lede Ramos.
Adopté une large majorité, Monsieur le Président.
Merci. Thank you. We will now vote on the amendment on the draft recommendation, which is amendment number 10. Is the vote open, Secretary General? Vote is open. Please vote. Vote is closed. Can we have the result, please?
16 yes, 0 negative votes, 1 abstention.
Which is, I understand now, unanimous. Yes. Voila, I'm learning every day. So, we shall now proceed to vote on the draft recommendation contained in document 15173 as it has just been amended. I recall on the colleagues to be adopted, a 2/3 majority is required. Is the vote open? Maybe for the colleagues to understand, there's a small time lapse, obviously, which explains why sometimes there's a bit of a small confusion, but the vote is open, I see. Please vote. Please vote. I'm waiting for the body language sign from the Secretary General. A thumbs up. Vote closed. Madam Secretary General, results.
18 votes in favor, 0 negative votes, 1 abstention.
So again, carried unanimously. Allow me to congratulate the rapporteur and the committee for the nice job done. Thank you very much and congrats. Colleagues, we now come to point 14 of our agenda, which is the protection of victims of arbitrary displacement. This is contained in document 15219. In the absence, unfortunate, of the rapporteur, Monsieur Fabien Goudfart, the report will be presented by the chairperson of the committee, Monsieur Frides. Pierre Halin, you have the floor.
Voilà, merci Monsieur le Président, chers collègues. Monsieur Fabien Goutfard m'a demandé de vous présenter ses excuses pour ne pas être en mesure de vous présenter personnellement son rapport aujourd'hui. Très investi sur ce dossier, il regrette beaucoup son absence en raison d'un autre engagement politique qui nécessite sa présence cet après-midi. Conscient du fait que la pandémie de Covid-19 a ralenti les travaux sur ce rapport et d'autres rapports, il est néanmoins reconnaissant que son rapport puisse enfin être adopté aujourd'hui, lui permettant de commencer une action de suivi par des mesures pratiques au sein de notre commission et avec les partenaires. Les Nations Unies nous ont alertés sur le fait que les déplacements de personnes se produisent à des chiffres plus élevés aujourd'hui qu'avant la pandémie de Covid-19. Nous tous comprenons très bien les souffrances supplémentaires infligées aux personnes déplacées lors d'une pandémie qui survient parallèlement à d'autres maladies et conditions hostiles. Selon les estimations du Haut Commissariat des Nations Unies pour les réfugiés, aujourd'hui près de 80 millions de personnes ont été déplacées de force dans le monde, la plupart d'entre elles étant déplacées à l'intérieur de leur pays. Après l'ex-Yougoslavie voilà 25 ans, la Syrie hier et la région du Tigré aujourd'hui, les drames humains abordés par M. Goutfard deviennent malheureusement le quotidien de l'actualité internationale. Guerre civile, conflits armés ont fatalement des répercussions dramatiques sur les populations, obligées ou forcées de fuir sous la menace des belligérants ou des bandes armées. Face à une telle souffrance, ce rapport rappelle les engagements de nos États membres et tente d'encourager une action juridique et politique plus efficace pour soutenir les victimes de déplacements forcés ou arbitraires. Détourner le regard et laisser place à l'impunité ne doit pas être la solution dans une société humaine fondée sur l'état de droit et les droits des êtres humains. Inspiré de la Convention de Kampala de l'Union africaine, notre commission a adopté le terme « déplacement arbitraire » pour le titre de ce rapport, car le terme « déplacement forcé » inclut parfois le déplacement pour d'autres causes naturelles ou liées à la pauvreté. Le présent rapport se concentre cependant sur les mesures concernant les déplacements intentionnels ou collatéraux causés par des actes de personnes tels que les actes de guerre, les agressions armées, le terrorisme et les violations graves des droits des êtres humains. Dans sa forme la plus odieuse, ce déplacement est perpétré dans le but politique de déplacer un groupe ethnique, ce que l'on appelle par euphémisme un nettoyage ethnique. L'initiative de ce rapport rappelle le cas de Nadia Mourad, qui a reçu le prix Václav Havel de notre Assemblée en 2016 pour sa force et son courage d'avoir survécu aux menaces de mort, aux abus sexuels et à la torture de la part de terroristes qui cherchaient à exterminer le peuple yézidi en Irak. Le rapport de M. Goutfard n'a pas l'intention de reproduire le rapport de M. Kylian Munyama de notre commission sur les besoins humanitaires et les droits des personnes déplacées à l'intérieur de leur propre pays en Europe. Ce dernier rapport est excellent et toujours valable. Plusieurs conflits en Europe sont en ce moment des plaies ouvertes qui ont provoqué le déplacement de très nombreuses personnes. Le présent rapport n'a cependant pas la prétention de résoudre ces conflits, mais de faire progresser la question de la prise en compte de ce brûlant problème et d'inciter au traitement juridique efficace des déplacements arbitraires. La pandémie nous empêche de nous réunir à Berlin aujourd'hui. Outre la France et quelques autres États membres, l'Allemagne est un ardent défenseur de la compétence universelle pour les crimes contre l'humanité et les crimes de guerre, sur la base de l'exemple historique du tribunal international de Nuremberg après la Seconde Guerre mondiale. M. Goutfard se félicite donc que son rapport soit adopté pendant la présidence allemande du Comité des ministres, qui pourrait soutenir activement les travaux de suivi de ce rapport et de la résolution et de la recommandation dont nous sommes saisis aujourd'hui. Dans ce contexte, M. Goutfard souhaite rappeler la déclaration conjointe du 15 mars des ministres des Affaires étrangères de l'Allemagne, des États-Unis d'Amérique, de la France, de l'Italie et du Royaume-Uni à l'occasion du 10e anniversaire du soulèvement syrien. Les ministres ont souligné « L'impunité est inacceptable et nous continuerons fermement à œuvrer pour que des comptes soient rendus pour les crimes les plus graves. Nous continuerons à soutenir le rôle important de la Commission d'enquête internationale et du mécanisme international impartial et indépendant. Nous accueillons les efforts continus des juridictions nationales pour mener des enquêtes et poursuites relevant de leurs compétences au sujet des crimes commis en Syrie. » Fin de citation. Il est donc très positif de voir que la Cour de cassation d'Italie a publié au début du mois son arrêt confirmant la condamnation d'un homme à la réclusion à perpétuité pour avoir tué et abusé de détenus au camp de Bani Walid en Libye. Dans le même esprit, un tribunal supérieur d'Allemagne a condamné un demandeur d'asile syrien et ancien membre des services secrets de Syrie à 4 ans et demi de prison pour complicité de crimes contre l'humanité. Je suis heureux d'ajouter que depuis 2011, le premier procès pour crime de guerre devant un tribunal civil suisse vise un commandant rebelle libérien faisant face à des allégations de viol, d'exécution et de cannibalisme. 8 ans auparavant, la Suisse avait gelé le compte bancaire du dirigeant libérien Charles Taylor, accusé de crimes de guerre. Davantage d'États devraient tenir compte des atrocités commises contre leurs demandeurs d'asile et poursuivre les auteurs. Tout forum européen ou international ne peut être qu'un dernier recours. Donc, une action nationale est nécessaire, par exemple de la part des procureurs nationaux qui enquêtent sur les crimes contre l'humanité relevant d'une compétence universelle. Il est essentiel d'introduire, si cela n'est pas déjà le cas, dans nos différentes législations nationales, la notion d'universalité du pouvoir d'enquête de nos juridictions nationales contre les crimes de guerre et les crimes contre l'humanité. Un autre point important abordé par notre collègue dans son rapport, ce qu'on pourrait appeler le devoir d'ingérence. Au point 12 de sa résolution, il en appelle à la possibilité de déployer des forces policières ou militaires sur un lieu de conflit pour protéger des populations en danger, par exemple sur mandat du Conseil de sécurité de l'ONU. Pour que la lutte contre les déplacements arbitraires soit efficace, il faut protéger les victimes et interdire ces déplacements, poursuivre les responsables et empêcher ces derniers de tirer profit de leurs agissements. Il faut donc également mettre en œuvre le droit international pour la saisie de tout produit ou bénéfice matériel dérivé du déplacement arbitraire de personnes. Le Conseil de l'Europe a créé plusieurs normes juridiques pertinentes dans ce contexte. Par conséquent, notre organisation pourrait être très utile pour protéger les droits des personnes déplacées. Les législations nationales devraient assurer la mise en œuvre effective de ces normes. Dans le cadre de la préparation de ce rapport, notre commission a apprécié l'échange de vues avec Mme Cecilia Jiménez Damary, rapporteure spéciale des Nations Unies sur les droits de l'homme des personnes déplacées dans leur propre pays. À l'occasion du 20e anniversaire des lignes directrices sur le déplacement interne de l'ONU, Mme Jiménez Damary a décrit son plan d'action ambitieux auquel notre Assemblée pourrait contribuer au niveau interparlementaire. Le sujet de ce rapport est si vaste que nous pourrions avoir plusieurs résolutions, mais il faut se concentrer avant tout sur les fondements juridiques et politiques. M. Goodfard et notre commission vous soumettent donc ce rapport pour adoption. Il remercie tous les membres et experts qui ont contribué activement à sa préparation, malgré les restrictions de la pandémie actuelle, et bien entendu le secrétariat qui a été d'une efficacité, comme d'habitude, excellente. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention.
Thank you for this. I open now the floor. I see that Emmanuel asks for the floor. Emmanuel, you have the floor.
Dear colleagues, thank you so much for this scrupulous report. And sorry that the original rapporteur cannot be with us, but thank you. Thank you so much, dear colleague, for a good presentation of this huge item. Just you make a catalog of problems of arbitrarily displaced persons, but behind you have huge terror network behind this terrible event. And I don't know how deeply you are involved in this report, but through some committees, I was trying to came to idea in the future to recommend and make resolutions about recommendation to make a international to bring to the International Hague Tribunal in The Hague, using our careful international justice tools, and finally come to evaluation of this huge tragedy happened during this war of fanatic terrorists against civil population. Okay, it's a little bit naive question that it should be done in professional juridical way, but what will be your opinion, your personal opinion about the future evaluation of the scope of problems in one place? And finally, to have, like it was after Bosnia Srebrenica, to have an international tribunal against those persons who inspire all this huge movement of the people, and they were behind this tragedy. Tell me, what is your personal opinion? I know you for years, like a very experienced politician, and admire so much your contribution to our parliamentary assembly. What is your opinion? How we can go forward to having scope and recommending to our friends in European Union and the Court of Justice to have this problem finally in one place, like it was done after other tragedies, like in the Balkan region, and now we are facing this huge region in the places mentioned in your report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emanuelis. Does anyone else request for the floor? I don't see that. Then I call Mr. Frieders to respond. Mr. Frieders, if you wish to respond, please ask for the floor. Yahala.
Oui, merci, Monsieur Zingeris, pour votre demande. Vous savez, ce rapport, il a vraiment comme but de mettre en avant cette problématique en demandant en fait à nos États membres, d'une part, de vraiment prêter attention à la situation de ces réfugiés et vraiment de tout faire pour les protéger parce qu'ils viennent souvent de l'horreur et il faut vraiment prendre en compte leurs souffrances passées. La deuxième chose que je trouve très important, c'est justement cette idée de devoir d'ingérence. Donc, il faut faire quelque chose avant que les drames arrivent à leurs extrémités les plus horribles. Donc, si jamais, sur mandat de l'ONU, par exemple, ou d'autres organisations reconnues, intervenir pour calmer les choses, comme on l'a fait en ex-Yougoslavie, par exemple. Et ensuite, entre les deux, il y a toute cette problématique juridique. Et là, je prends note avec intérêt de votre proposition, qui est absolument logique, dans des choses d'une gravité extrême, comme en ex-Yougoslavie ou dans d'autres situations, que ce soit un tribunal consacré, le tribunal international de La Haye, vraiment des grands spécialistes qui s'occupent de ça, c'est fondamental. Par contre, nous sommes confrontés à une multitude de cas, même dans nos différents pays, et là, ce qui me paraît important, c'est que justement, on crée les conditions d'une universalité du droit également dans nos pays pour que, suite à la prise de connaissance d'une situation particulière, la justice d'un pays puisse se saisir de ce problème et le résolve en soi par rapport à un cas précis d'une personne qui aurait été arrêtée sur son sol, qui aurait été confondue par rapport à son passé. Donc, véritablement, il faut étendre le champ d'action des différentes juridictions possibles pour vraiment prendre tout en compte et résoudre tous les problèmes, parce qu'on ne peut pas engorger, on va dire, une cour comme celle de La Haye, une multitude de situations qui, des fois, n'ont pas la même gravité, la même importance que celles qui sont traitées dans cette cour, même si, pour les victimes, chaque chose a une valeur vraiment fondamentale parce que c'est ce qu'eux ont vécu et ces drames sont chaque fois à prendre en compte. Encore une fois, merci de bien vouloir soutenir ce rapport, la recommandation et la résolution. Merci.
Thank you. Merci. The debate now is closed. We will proceed to the vote. I would like to remind you that only members to the Standing Committee are entitled to vote. First issue is the vote on the draft resolution. No amendments have been tabled, so we will proceed to vote on the draft resolution, which you have in your documents under number 15219. To be adopted, a simple majority is required. I'm looking to my left. Is the vote open? The The vote is open. Please vote. Waiting for the thumbs up. There it is. Madam Secretary General, may we have the results?
19 votes in favor, no against, and no abstentions.
So this is a hard unanimity. Everyone in favor. Thank you for that. We will now come to the vote on the draft recommendation. I recall that we need a 2/3 majority for it to be carried. It is also contained in document 15219. Is the vote open? The vote is open. Yep. Please vote.
President, there has been a technical bug.
Okay.
Technical problem. So
We-
please, can we repeat the vote?
We will repeat the vote and we will ask someone to chase the bug. Right? Qu'est-ce qui peut me trouver le I cafard?
The vote is open.
The vote is open. Please vote.
Moi, je ne vois pas les résultats. Tu peux le voir?
We still have that bug running around apparently. Bon. We have to start again. This is the third time on this vote. Is the vote open now? C'est bon? The vote is open. Please vote.
Je suis désolée, moi je ne vois pas les résultats. Est-ce que quelqu'un voit les résultats? Moi non, moi je n'ai rien. Non, mais normalement je vois view name list.
Voilà, please vote.
Si quelqu'un d'autre voit les résultats, il les annonce. Katerina, tu vois les résultats?
Vote is closed. I'm looking to my right now. Katarina, which is the result? Okay. So I see it in front of me. 19 in favor, 1 against, no abstentions. Hence, the recommendation is carried. My congratulations to the committee and to the rapporteur. We now move on point 15 on our agenda, which is the classical other business issue. Is any other business tabled? If so, please ask for the floor. I see Emmanuel Zinger is asking for the floor. Emmanuelis, you have the floor. And put on your camera. I would like to see you. Where are you? Come on, Emmanuelis.
Yeah, okay.
You have the floor.
Okay. My question will be related to the question I just raised before during our last 3 months, and of course we can use bureau meeting and we can collect signatures and go again. But I would like to go back and ask you, dear speaker, how was during your Russia trip? You spent that in Bureau yesterday, and yesterday you spoke enough time in the Bureau. But I would like to know from you how you see the Navalny case, and I have right to raise that like head of my delegation to you, not in the confrontational way, but in consultational way. So I would like to consult with you, like a friend and a man who is based on the human rights and parliamentary values. So from this point of view, I would like to have your evaluation how we go forward with two reports of our best friend Jacques Mer, and of course the third question about possible resolution about that, who we just felt to have that last time, and we avoided during the urgent debate. I'm just talking, of course, about our future upcoming session, and I avoided that to rise in the standing committee frame. But while I'm from 93 in the Assembly 1993, I would like simply to have your opinion about that, even not putting anything to the voting. So simply to have your comment.
Thank you, Emanuelis. Thank you for the question. Obviously, it is an important issue, as all other issues that we have approached and tackled, if you wish, today. You will allow me not to go into the lengthy debrief that I gave at the Bureau, because that would take us over the time limits. More specifically, the issue, as has been put on the table today, will be addressed in an urgent affairs debate in April. So a number of the elements that were on the table yesterday will be addressed. A few elements that I might recall of what I have informed the Bureau of yesterday. Maybe one, the openness of the Russian Federation authorities to fully cooperate with our rapporteurs. This is not only the monitoring issue, and as far as I've been informed, our two monitoring rapporteurs have already engaged in an exercise, and from what I hear, the openness that has been promised is indeed there. And as I understand, they might even, if COVID allows them, be in situ, as they say, in Moscow, too, on specifically the Navalny detention case and report, if you wish, which is under urgent debate, but still the committee needs to address it, if I got it right, on Monday. So it's a bit talking before the actual issue, but I do have the formal agreement of the Vice Minister of Justice, who is the responsible in the Russian Federation's administration on the compliance to the judgments of the court, to personally give full cooperation to the rapporteur to be designated or reconfirmed or what have you on this report. I can only say, Emanuelis and colleagues, at this stage that the openness that was voiced, of course, has to be put into practice. But if the practice is equal to the message that I got, in America they would say, if we all walk the talk, that's an American expression that you know without any doubt. I believe that progress can be made. But then again, I am an optimistic person by nature. You know, Popper, optimism is a moral duty. But I do believe that if we all are willing, that significant progress is within reach. You will allow me not to elaborate more on the issue at this stage, because then I have to go into all the details that I delivered yesterday in the Bureau, but I suppose that there are reports that will allow you to look into it. And as I have always said, and this counts for everyone, when my door is open in my office, you can step in, but when it's closed, you better stay out. But it's mostly open. So any colleague around this virtual table who wishes to communicate with me on any issue, this and other ones, is obviously invited to do so. Voilà. Is there any other business that any colleague wishes to address? Thank you. Then we come to our next meeting. The Standing Committee will hold its next public meeting on May 28th, 2021, possibly in Budapest. If the sanitary situation would allow it, I sincerely hope it would allow it, because it's a lovely city. I know it quite well. And I would like to end with thanking all our colleagues around this virtual table, all participants, but specifically also all those who made this meeting possible. I'm talking about our technicians who have to tackle these e-bugs all the time. Our interpreters, obviously, thank you for the excellent job as always. And sorry sometimes to switch in languages, but maybe next time I'll do a little bit more just to have you on your qui vive, as they say it in my country. And obviously to my lovely staff around me here. You know, I'm only executing what I'm putting into practice what they tell me to do, right? This is the way it goes. But I do want to stress that I'm quite happy with the team who perform in an excellent way. So only positive things concerning that. So voila, thank you, madams, because it's only madams at the moment. And hope to see you soon. The meeting is closed.
Thank you, monsieur. Un petit côté pas